Hello and welcome to this short demonstration of SDN Privatizer. SDN Privatizer is part of the SDN Secure Suite application suite, which is a group of applications that you can use in combination with Open vSwitch, Aruba OS and ComWest switches. So Privatizer is an application that allows you to block traffic between hosts or groups of hosts or subnets. So it's very similar to the Private VLAN functionality that you have on switches, but this goes beyond layer 2 actually, so we can actually block hosts beyond layer 2 domains. So let's start with the configuration. The first step is to configure SNMP. So what we have here is we've got the main page of SDN Privatizer here, so we'll start off configuring SNMP. We'll add an SNMP community. So we'll add a new domain, v3. We're using SNMP version 3 because I've configured the Open vSwitch for SNMP version 3. Create a username, password for the authentication and for the encryption, and submit the community. So that's the community. Next step is to do a network discovery. So we'll add a new range here. The IP address of the Open vSwitch so it's actually running Mininet, but the IP address is 192.168.0.103, and my domain is SNMP v3. So I'll add the network range here, and I'll discover the device. So once the discovery is done, we should be able to see the network device here in the list. You can see it's here, and then we can edit it, and we can set it to manage. We haven't configured any controllers or added any controllers or teams, but we do that later on. We change the device, and what you'll see here is you can see that the SNMP works and that my device is online. The next step is to add a controller to the privatized application. So we'll click on controllers, click on add controller. So we have a controller with the following IP address. So the default port for the SDN controller is 8443, so I can fill that in here, but I don't have to. If I leave that field empty, it will automatically select port 8443. So running version 2.71, I want to manage it. I've got the periodic scheduler here, so if I click this one, once every 5 minutes all information will be obtained from the controller, like the flows and the DPIDs and stuff. So I'm selecting the SNMP community. So this would be my user login and password, and selecting the controller type. And that's the controller. So you can see here that my controller is online, and from these from these buttons, what I can do is I can access the controller GUI. And let's go back, and with this hyperlink I can open the API. So there's some easy hyperlinks that you have. Once the controller is created and the DPIDs are discovered, what I can do now is I can go back to the network devices and edit the device, and I can now associate the device with a controller. And now you can see here that the device is associated to a couple of DPIDs here. So I cannot change them because they're obviously related to the Mininet. But okay, let's go back to controllers. Yeah, so, and then the next step is, so what we have here is we have the diagram. So this is basically the network that we are discovering and managing. So what you can see is you've got your switches here, OpenFlow switches, and they're all separated by routers. So they are operating in different domains. So what we have to do is we have to define static uplinks on DPID 2, 3, 7, and 8. so that we can, if we start to create flows, we can select that uplink port. So let's check the network diagram. So what we have here is we have a couple of OpenFlow domains which are separated by routers here. So R1 to R4 are routers, and they are not OpenFlow capable. So what we have to do is, in order to be able to block traffic between OpenFlow domains, we have to define static uplinks. So for example, for DPID2, the static uplink would be defined on port 1. Now what we can do is, if we want to know which ports they are, the static uplinks, so what we can do is we can go to the SDN controller GUI, and we can check for each DPID what the static uplink is here. So for example, for DPID2, we have 10.10.2.254, which is the router, and you can see here that the router is located on port 1. And then we can do that for all the different DPIDs. So for example, here for DPID7, the router is connected to port 5. So let's define the static uplinks. Back to the Privatizer GUI, so we have to select the static uplinks here, and then we're just gonna add them here. So for DPID2, my uplink port was 1. Submit link, and I'm gonna add another one for DPID3. The static uplink was also port 1. For DPID7, 7 here, my uplink port was port 5, and for DPID8, my uplink port was port 4. So that's my static uplinks. And then the final step in the preparation is we have to define subnets, we have to define networks. So what I'm going to do is go to network ranges. I'm going to add a network subnet here, 10.10.2.0. My default gateway is 10.10.2.254. It's a class C network. Just give it a VLAN ID to VLAN 2. Okay, so add another one, 10.10.3.0. VLAN 3. And finally 10.10.4.0. So that's your preparation. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create some flows. And for that, I'm just going to show you the Mininet GUI again. So what you see here, if we do a ping all, you can see that all the hosts are reachable. So every host can reach each other. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to set a default rule that blocks all hosts in a given subnet. So let's start with VLAN 2. So for example, we have, if I show you the diagram, we have host 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 operating in subnet 10.10.2. So let's go back to this one and let's do H1 ping H2. So you see that it works. So if we go to the GUI again, so let's create some flows. I select the controller, and what I can do here is for the source and destination VLAN, I can set a default action. So I want to set this action to drop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to submit the default action for the subnet. And now I'm going to go back and see if my ping still works. So what you can see now is that my ping doesn't work anymore for this subnet. So if I do H1 ping H3, for example, it's just blocking. If I ping to another subnet, so show you the diagram. So if I would ping from host 1 to host 7, so that's another subnet, that would still work. So H1 ping H7. So I can still cross the router. So let's keep this one running and go back to this one and block from source VLAN 2 to destination VLAN 3. Set the default action for block as well. So do that and go back to the screen, and you can see it's blocking now. Doesn't do anything anymore. H1 ping H8. Oh, sorry. H1 ping H8. It's blocking. It's just not working anymore. So that's your default rule for the subnet. And what I can do is for specific hosts, I can allow traffic again. So for example, subnet 2, so VLAN 2 is blocked all the way. So what I can do now is I can say, well, but I want to be able to communicate between host 1 and host 4. So back to the diagram, host 1 to host 4. So they're both located on different DPIDs, on different switches. So I want to be able to communicate between those two. So click next. Select the hosts. It's a direct link. Commit the action. So let's see if that works. So it's pushing the flow now, obtaining the flows. Let's see if that works. So H1 ping H4. There you go. That works. I still cannot ping the other hosts in that subnet, but between host 1 and host 4 there's communication possible. If you create individual flows, this might become a little bit cumbersome to configure. So what we can do is we also have the option to create communities. So a community is a group of hosts that you can either block or allow communication. So let's create a community. Let's give it a name. I don't know, let's call it engineering. Engineering department. So my action would be forward. I select the controller, and now what I can do is if I select the community members, what I can do is I can select the hosts that I want to be a member of this community. So for example, let's say 4, 5, I can use the control key to select multiple entries actually. So say 4.1 and 3.3 for example. I'll just add them, update the community, so they're now in the list, and submit the community. So you can see here that the community is created. I can show the members of the community with the MAC addresses. It's all obtained from the database. And I can also show the flows for the community, which are now empty, obviously, because I have not activated the flow, or activated the community. Let's activate the community. Okay. It's pushing the flows now to the DPIDs. And obtaining the flows again, and now it's activated. So now what I can do now is I can show the flows again, and you can see the flows that are created for the DPIDs. Okay, so let's put it to the tests. Let's go back and check the members. So we've got 4, 5, 3, 3, and 4, 1. So I should be able to communicate between those 4 hosts. So let's take the subnet 2 and subnet 3. Remember that I have set a default rule for subnet VLAN 2 to block everything. So H5. So that's working. I still should not be able to ping from H4 to H6. There you go, still blocking. And let's go beyond. That was host 8, I believe. No. So still blocking there. It was host 9. This was 10.10.3, 3. I can ping there. So that's your community configuration. Just remember, for the flows, I did not set a flow rule to block traffic between subnet 2 and subnet 4. So let's do that. And also for VLAN 3 to VLAN 4, let's do that as well. So again, back to this one. So host 7 ping host 10. Should not be able to do that, but let's show the members again. So 4.1, which is host 10. Host 10 here. Let's go back. So from host 9 I should be able to ping host 10. You see, but from host 9 I should not be able to ping host 11. So that's your communities. There's a lot more things you can do with SDN Privatizer. Let me show you some troubleshooting that you can do. So let's show the flows, and let's show the flows for this DPID. So you can see here, so we can see the flows here. So one of the two flows that you can see here is host 1 to host 4, where the output is set, the instruction is set to normal. So this is allowing traffic between host 1 and host 4. So if I want to troubleshoot that, so for example, let's do h1 ping h4. So that should work, obviously. And go back to this one. What you can see here is you can see the packet and the byte count here. So 292842. So what I can do is if I refresh, you can see the count increasing. So that means that this flow is actually being hit. So that's a good way to check whether your flows are working. There's a lot more things you can do. So we support teaming. Actually, we support teaming for all the applications. So there's SDN Privatizer as part of the SDN Secure Suite, which consists of 3 applications. So we support teaming on all these applications. What we also can do is we can, so if I show DPIDs, we can add static DPIDs. There you go. We can add static nodes. So let's go to show nodes. We can add static nodes here, connecting to the DPID. And let me show you the dashboard. There's also a dashboard here, so we can select a little light bulb here, and then you get all the information in one single view. And there's a lot of administrative tasks you can do. So you can add users that can access the application. So you can add them here. You can give them read-only, read and write, and administrator access. It would be good to create a backdoor administrator account, because the admin root user account is the user that you created upon installation. You cannot delete this user. As you can see here, you cannot delete this user. So let me just create super user. Super. Password. Okay. And that will become the administrator. That's there. So if I log out, I log in as super user. I've got my super user admin rights still here. So we can do configuration checks. So this will give you some information on what's running, the database with the database size, the Postgres. So this one's running on PostgreSQL. You can see here that all the extensions are running fine. Schedulers running. There's an application log. It's where you can do some filtering. You can delete stuff here. There's a maintenance. So what we can do is we can backup, restore, or purge databases. There's also a basic LDAP viewer. It's very basic, but it does work. So we can add LDAP entries here, and you can do some browsing. So the SNMP we've been through, and there's a very basic SSH client here as well that you can use to just get some information from an SSH capable device. So you can see a lot of stuff that you can do here. So thanks for watching this demonstration, and hope you like it.